Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Now, I think this is the last section, if I'm not mistaken, in the chapter. And if it is, then, and if we manage to finish it today, then I think what we'll do is we'll um, call it a day for a while. And we'll take like a short break, maybe a month break or something like that for the summer, and then come back later on. Um, so this will be the last session for the summer, inshallah ta'ala, if we get through this section today. Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah, Ghada and Irvina. Okay, so this is on the ultimate reality. Last time we talked about the real through whom creation takes place. So the term reality, haqiqah, is often used as a synonym for entity. The reality of a thing is then the immutable entity of an existent thing, or the thing as it is known by God. So, yeah. The properties of the existent thing are determined by its own reality or immutable entity. We have seen that the divine names are referred to as realities and that they are the archetypes of all created things. The reality of human knowledge is the divine name, knower. The reality of cosmic life is the divine name, alive, and so on. If we consider the 99 names of God as the universal realities of the cosmos, uh, then each immutable entity can be called a particular reality. So this goes back to the philosophical terms, universals and particulars. And if you apply them with the Islamic Akbarian lens, then it's the 99 names that are the universals, right? They apply to all things. And everything else, we can say that the immutable entities are the particulars of those realities, you know? So it's like, for example, the divine name Ar-Razaq, the nourisher, the provider, um, is a universal reality. Like everyone needs nourishment, right? And then certain objects called like apple, banana, and lettuce are called particulars of that universal reality. One way of defining reality is to call it the non-manifest dimension of something that is manifest. The reality of an existent thing is not what we see of it, but its immutable entity, which is seen only by God and certain of his friends. And in considering the term reality, haqiqah, one must always keep in mind that it is sometimes employed synonymously with real, a word from the same root. The real is named the manifest and the non-manifest. Reality is the manifestation of the attributes of the real from behind a veil, which is the attributes of the servant. Once the veil of ignorance is lifted from the eye of insight, people see that the attributes of the servant is identical to the attributes of the real. But in our view, the attribute of the servant is the real itself, not the attribute of the real, right? It's a slight distinction. The attribute of the servant is God himself. It's not that the servant's attribute is God's attribute. Like, like if I have the attribute of power, we say, oh, that comes from God's attribute of power. He's saying, no, it's God himself. It's the real itself. Not the attribute of the real, since the manifest is a creature and the non-manifest is real. And the non-manifest is the source, if you use the word mansha, of the manifest, right? You know how like in Islamic praxis on epistemology, the um the uh the non-manifest dimension of reality, so the unseen dimension forms the foundation for the seen dimension of reality. The unseen is the foundation for the seen. So the non-manifest is the source and it's the foundation for the manifest. In the same way, the limbs of a person follow and obey what the soul wants from them. The limbs is the outward manifestation of the soul's command. So the limbs are the outward manifestation of an inward reality. So it's the inward that acts as the foundation for the outward and the manifest. The soul is non-manifest in entity, but manifest in property, right? While the limb is manifest in property, but has no non-manifest dimension of its own, since it has no property of its own. If the realities of the existent things of the cosmos are the immutable entities and the divine names, what is the reality of the divine names? In one sense, we can answer that the reality is the divine essence, itself, as that, which is that al-asma, possessor of the names. But strictly speaking, the essence is beyond knowledge or conceptualization. So this answer, though it may be true, does not provide us with any new way of looking at things. In fact, says Ibn al-Arabi, the realities, حقيقة الحقائق, also known as the universal reality, al-حقيقة الكلية, can be discussed and conceptualized. So we can't really talk about God's essence, but we can talk about the universal reality. This doctrine, Ibn al-Arabi claims, um, as belonging exclusively to the Sufis. So he says it belongs to the Sufis, but though he does recognize that the Mu'tazilites had understood something similar. Another question: Where, um, where are the realities of things? We have seen that the first thing about which awareness can be posited is the cloud, which was named in answer to the question, "Where was our Lord?" before he created the creatures. And the name Lord demands the term vassal. It can be employed as a description of any divine name that calls for the existence of an entity. Thus, the knower is the Lord, and the known thing is its vassal. The creator is the Lord, and the created thing is its vassal. The powerful is the Lord, and the object of power is its vassal. A reality, by definition, is a non manifest root which has a manifest branch. Just as the creator is a non manifest root and the created thing is a manifest branch. Hence, in this sense of the term, a reality is a Lord, while the thing that manifests the reality in the cosmos is its vassal. According to this perspective, the question asked from the Prophet can be rephrased as follows. Where were the realities before the vassals were brought into existence? That's interesting. The answer is known in the cloud. Hence, the cloud is the reality of realities, whereas the divine essence or he-ness itself, which cannot be conceived as the Lord of anything, is beyond the cloud and it's beyond being conceptualized as the Lord of something. So, lordship is the relationship, nisbah, of the he-ness, the huwiya in Arabic, to an entity. But the he-ness in itself does not require any relationship. Rather, the immutability of the entities demands relationships with the he-ness. It is characteristic of a barzakh to stand between two stools. Is the cloud God or is it creation? Is it existent or is it non-existent? To these sorts of questions, one has to answer equivocally. Since here we have the whole mystery of non-delimited imagination, hinati. Inasmuch as the barzakh may be said to embrace both the attributes of God and the attributes of creation, it is called the universal reality, since it brings together all realities without exception. The reality of realities defines the sphere of intelligibility of all things. Through it, the relationships are established without which nothing can be known. It is not a separately existing thing, unlike God on the one hand, or the cosmos on the other. Ibn al-Arabi describes it as ma'qul, intelligible, or conceived of by reason. This means that we are able to conceive of it, even though it has no existence as such. It exists only through the relationships that are established between God and creation. After all, it possesses the attributes of those things that it embraces, which are the divine names and the immutable entities. As we have seen on more than one occasion, neither names nor entities are existent as such, right? They represent relationships that are established between the non-manifest and the manifest. When we conceive of the totality of these relationships, we call it the universal reality. Like he's speaking so abstractly, but one, he's seeing these things, right? And two, I think these things do have an expression in different kinds of mythologies. Ibn al-Arabi, he has his own mythology, believe it or not, where he tries to express these dry things that he's talking about in terms of four animals. And I'm trying to remember the animals. If anyone can do like a quick Google search on something called the Universal Tree and the Four Birds, the Universal Tree and the Four Birds, it's translated into English by Angela Jeffrey. It's a really nice poem. Um, so let me see if I can do this quickly myself as well. Right. So tree and bird. Okay, can everyone see this on my screen, the internet? Yeah, that's the book. So if I open it up very quickly, maybe it won't be that quick because of my internet. See, this is the book. Can you guys see it? Did I switch screens or
Yes, we
no?
can see.
All right, thanks. Okay. Um, so here you've got the ring dove, the royal eagle, the strange anka, and the jet black crow. So one of those represents the universal reality. Um, I can actually find it quickly, but I don't remember which animal it is. But it's one of them. It's one of these animals. Yeah. Anyways, so if someone takes a look at it at some point, then that might be interesting. But you see, so these things can be expressed mythologically. It doesn't have to be pure abstractions. So he says the reality of realities is neither existent nor non-existent, neither temporally originated nor eternal, but eternal in the eternal and temporally originated in the temporally originated. Why is he saying these things? Because the reality of realities encompasses God and creation, which is odd when you think about it, because God is supposed to be the one who encompasses everything. Like in the last session, we just talked about the real through whom creation takes place. And he's the one who kind of like encompasses the known universe, what we can know about the cosmos and everything that's in it, in existence. But if you talk about the reality of realities, it encompasses what is God and what is not God, which is why it encompasses what's existent and non-existent, what is temporally originated, that's us, and eternal, right? And so on and so forth. So it is conceived of by the rational faculty, but it does not exist in its own essence, right? It's not an existing thing the way you and I are. The same is the case, for example, with the attributes of knowing, speaking, and so on. Now, the universal reality becomes manifest in the eternal as eternal, and in temporally created, originated things as temporally created, originated things. It is the manifestation of the divine realities and the lordly forms, the Surah Rabbaniya, which means the divine names, within the immutable entities, which are described by possibility and which are the loci of manifestation for the real. But none knows the relationship of this manifestation to this locus of manifestation except God. In one passage, Ibn al-Arabi speaks of the four objects of knowledge, the four basic concepts which embrace all that can be known. These are God as essence, though we cannot know the essence as such, the cosmos as a whole, that is everything other than God, the macrocosm, the human being in which all God's attributes are brought together in undifferentiated mode, i.e., the microcosm, and the universal reality, which brings together all three of these realities. The Sheikh then describes the universal reality. So, the universal reality belongs to both the real and the cosmos. It is described neither by existence nor by non existence, neither by temporal origination nor by eternity. If the eternal is described by it, it is eternal. So that means it's an eternal reality we're describing. If the temporally originated thing is described by it, it is temporally originated. No object of knowledge, whether eternal or temporally originated, is known until this reality is known. But this reality does not come into existence until those things described by it come into existence. If something exists without a precedent non existence, like the real and his attributes, one says that this reality is an eternal existent, since the real is described by it. But if something exists after non-existence, like the existence of everything other than God, then this reality is temporally originated and existed through something other than itself, right? We say that God exists through himself, and the things exist through God. In each existent thing, it accords with its own reality, since it does not accept division, since within it there is no whole or part. One cannot attain to knowledge of it disengaged from form through a logical demonstration or a proof. Yeah? Irvina, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Why consumption? Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, yes.
It was interesting that it was divided into the real, the cosmos, and then the human being. Doesn't
Yeah.
the cosmos contain the human being? Why was it divided like that?
Because the cosmos is the attributes dispersed, spread out, scattered. You single out the human being because he is the الحقيقة الجامعية. He's the one that brings together the realities. So by the way, the cosmos, it's not just that it contains the human being, okay? You and I are human beings, but that's not the human that he intends. The cosmos is the mirror of the true human being, who is the Adamic human being, who is insan kamil. Now, the cosmos does contain insan kamil, but the cosmos is also the mirror of insan kamil, perfect man, perfect woman. So that's why you single them out, because the cosmos contains the attributes in a differentiated way, whereas that means the divine attributes and the divine names. But insan kamil contains the universe and the divine names in an undifferentiated way, in a summative way, in a comprehensive way.
Can we say that the human being is the other than God? In this case, just as the cosmos is the other than God?
Yes, definitely in one sense, the human being is other than God. But that's not the end of the story. But yes, we can say in one sense he is other than God. Yeah.
I see.
The
Thank
only
you so much.
the only problem is he's also not other than God too. But we have to talk about that like in more detail. So it's actually both. That's why he talks about this word in the beginning. We came across it, which is huwa la huwa, he not he. So that's the actual situation. We are other than God and we're not other than God. Yeah. That's the actual situation, which is ambiguity, equivocality, equivocality.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So one cannot attain to knowledge of it, of reality, I guess we were talking about, disengaged from form through a logical demonstration. So logical demonstrations, because Ibn Arabi will mention this because he is talking to people of logical demonstration a lot of the time, the mutakalimun, the rational theologians. And so he's telling them you can't really attain to knowledge of reality simply through logical demonstration. It doesn't work that way. When you abstract the reality through its form. So he says, to actually know reality, you have to taste it through dhawq. So by this reality, the cosmos came into existence through the real. But this reality is not existent, that the real should have brought us into existence from an eternally existent thing, and we should be called eternal, because we'd be eternal, but we're not. In the same order of things, you should know that this reality is not described as prior to the cosmos, nor is the cosmos described as posterior to it. But it is the root of all existent things. This realities, is the root of all existent things. It is the root of substance, the sphere of life, which I guess is like the cosmic sphere, I guess. What does it mean by sphere of life? I'm not sure. But so it's the root of substance, it's the root of the sphere of life, it's the root of the real through whom creation takes place, and so forth. It is the all-encompassing intelligible sphere. Because don't forget, so the realities can, quote unquote, contains God and non-God creation. It is the all-encompassing intelligible sphere. If you say that it is the cosmos, you're correct. That it is not the, if you say it's not the cosmos, you're correct. And if you say it's the real or not the real, you're correct. It accepts all of that. At the same time, it becomes plural through the plurality of the individual things of the cosmos, and it is declared incomparable through God's incomparability. The reality of realities possesses temporal origination in the temporally originated thing and eternity in the eternal. This becomes manifest in the sharing of names. He has named you with what he has named himself, but he has not named you. Rather, he has named the universal reality, which brings together the real and creation. So, for example, you are the knower, and he is the knower, okay, with a capital K. However, you are temporally originated, so the attribution of knowledge to you is temporally originated. So it's your knowledge is a created knowledge, while he is eternal. So the attribute of knowledge to him is eternal. But knowledge in itself is a single thing, which has come to be qualified by the attribute of him who is described by it. You see, so in the realities, ultimate reality, knowledge is one. We don't say anything about it. But it's just that if I describe you by knowledge, then we say it's a created knowledge. But if we are talking about God's knowledge, then we're talking about an eternal knowledge. But in itself, knowledge is one, right? And the following, and the same goes with all the other attributes. In the following passage, Ibn al-Arabi is discussing the symbolism of the cloud, which he shows to be identical with universal reality, though he does not mention the latter by name. The word for air, hawa, employed in the hadith of the cloud is closely connected in origin and meaning to the word caprice, hawa, it's true, which is a Quranic term signifying the self-centered and ignorant willfulness of those who follow their own desires as another god, thus becoming guilty of the only unforgivable sin, shirk, or associating another reality with God. Have you seen him who has taken his caprice to be his God? Who is further astray than he who follows his caprice without guidance from God? Caprice is an airiness and light-headedness that turns a person away from right guidance. In what follows, Ibn al-Arabi employs the term ahwa, which is the plural of both air and caprice, to bring out one of the implications of the air mentioned in the hadith of the cloud. I translate the term as airs, hoping to call to mind that a person who puts on airs is acting merely for the sake of appearance and outward show, not because the reality of things would demand it. That God should put on airs is diametrically opposed to the idea that he creates through the real force. The Prophet said that our Lord is in a cloud, neither above which nor below which is any air. Thereby, he declared God incomparable with the idea that he turns things about because of airs. He alluded to that being with the word which denotes a cloud, which is the place where airs turn things about. Then he denied that there should be any air above or below that cloud. Hence, it possesses everlasting immutability. It is neither on air nor in air. God described himself among his creatures with the words, he turns the affair, he differentiates the signs. In the same way, he said, we turn about the signs. He who has no understanding imagines that God's states undergo change, but he is high, exalted, and far too holy for change. Rather, the states change, but he does not change with them. For he rules over properties. Nothing rules over him. Hence, the lawgiver mentioned in this hadith the attribute of immutability, which does not accept change. For the hand of heirs does not turn about his signs, since the cloud does not accept heirs. This cloud is that which we have mentioned as eternal in the eternal and temporally originate in the temporally originate. This is like your words, or identical with your words concerning being existence. When you attribute it to the real, you say it is eternal. But when you it to creation, you say that it is temporally originated. So the cloud, inasmuch as it is a description of the real, is a divine description. But inasmuch as it is a description of the cosmos, it is an engendered description. Its descriptions are diverse according to the diversity of the entities which are described. God says concerning his beginningless and eternal speech, there comes not to them a remembrance from their Lord, temporally originated, but they listen to it yet playing, diverted their hearts. Hence, he describes his speech as as temporally originated, as newly made, since it came down upon a temporally originated person, in respect to whom there originate, in respect to whom there originate in time something which he did not know. So it is temporally originated for him without doubt. As for this temporally originated thing, is it temporally originate in itself or not? By the way, the word means like arising in time. Temporally means temporal in time. So did this thing originate in time or not? If we say that it is the attribute of the real, of which his majesty is worthy, we will say that it is eternal without doubt. For he is far too exalted for temporally originate attributes to subsist within him. So the speech of the real is eternal in itself and eternal in relationship to in relation to God, but also temporally originate, just as he said to him to whom he sent that verse down. In the same way, one of the faces of its eternity in respect to him to whom it is sent down is its relationship to temporally origination. What does that mean? I'm going to read that again. In the same way, one of the phases of its eternity in respect to him to whom it was sent down is its relationship to temporal origination. Okay. This also demands that it possess the attribute of eternity, since were temporal origination to be removed from the created things, there could be no relationship of eternity, nor could eternity be conceived. Like this is like a heavy, complex argument just to say that in order for us to know eternity, there has to be created things, because then you wouldn't be able to distinguish eternity from created things if there's only eternal things, eternal attributes. The reason for this is that relationships which have opposites can only be conceived through opposites, right? So the eternal can only be conceived through its opposite, which is the created thing. Ibn al-Arabi finds an allusion to the universal reality in the hadith. All haqs have a single reality. Here, by haq, he seems to understand real thing. If al-haq with the definite article is the real, is God, then haq without the article refers to any manifestation of the real. But the real itself is the essence beyond the specification of any name. Once the real is specified by name, that is a relationship which is established between it and creation, that name becomes the reality of the creature to which it is related. The one reality to which every real thing relates can only be the universal reality, which embraces all names and all entities. The universal reality is the spirit of every haqq, of every real thing, of every right. Should a haqq be empty of it, it ceases to be a haqq. That is why the Prophet said, all haqqs have a reality. In this saying, he employs a word which, when free of the limiting contexts, demands all-inclusiveness, ihatta. That is the word all. In the same way, the concept of knowledge or life or desire includes all knowledge, all life, all desire. In reality, universal reality is a single intelligible thing. When a specific quality is attributed to it, it then possesses a name, which comes into temporal being. So it's like, subhanAllah, so it's like the attribute of knowledge is eternal and all-encompassing and everything. When you use an Arabic what's called alif lam ta'rif, al-ilm, for example. So the knowledge, right? But when you specify it, it's like, oh, the duck's knowledge, the human being's knowledge, right? That's when it becomes created. So it's like you've got Play-Doh, and you've got this whole mass of Play-Doh. Um, Actually, that's a bad example. Forget the Play-Doh example. Forget that. But it only becomes created once it's specified. It only becomes created once it is specified. Okay, where was I? Okay, so in reality, maybe I'll repeat myself. The universal reality is a single intelligible thing. When a specific quality is attributed to it, it then possesses a name which comes into temporal being. Then, when that specific quality is attributed to an essence, which is known to existence, even though its reality is not known, that specific quality is attributed to that determinate essence in accordance with what it requires. If that essence is described by eternity, then the specific quality is described by eternity. If it is described by temporal origination, then the quality is described by the same. But the quality in itself is not described by existence, since it has no entity, nor by non-existence, since it is an intelligible thing, nor by temporal origination, since the eternal cannot be described by that. It cannot be a locus for temporally originated things, nor is the quality described by eternity, since the temporally originated thing accepts description by the quality. And the temporal thing is not described by the eternal, nor can the eternal dwell in the temporal. Hence, it is neither eternal nor temporally originate. If the temporally originate thing is described by it, it is named temporally originate. And if the eternal is described by it, it is named eternal. It is truly eternal and eternal, and is truly temporally originate and the temporally originated, since it stands opposite everything that becomes described by it in its own essence. For example, both the real and the creature are described by knowledge. It is said concerning God's knowledge that it is eternal, since he who is described by it is eternal. God is eternal, so his knowledge is eternal. Hence, his knowledge of the things is eternal, without any beginning. It is said concerning the knowledge of the creature that it is created, temporally originating in time. For he who is described by it at first was not, didn't exist, and then he came to be. Hence, his attributes are like himself. Their property did not become manifest within him until after the existence of his entity. Hence, his knowledge is temporally originated like himself. But knowledge in itself does not change from its own reality in relation to itself. In every essence, it accords with its own reality and entity, but it has no existential entity, right? You can't point to realities. It's not a thing out there, except the entity of that which it describes. So it remains in its root, an intelligible thing we can know through our intellect, but not an existent thing. You don't see with your own eyes. It's realities. The example of this in the sensory realm is whiteness in every white thing and blackness in every black thing. This is in the case of colors. The same holds true in shapes. Rectangularity in every rectangular thing, roundness in every round thing, octagonality in every octagon. The shape keeps its own essence in everything that has shape. It accords with the intelligibility of its own reality. That which the senses perceive is only the thing which has the shape, not the shape. Got it? Like if I have like a square Rice Krispie, sorry for this example. So you're seeing a square Rice Krispie, but you're not seeing squareness itself. You can't ever see squareness, period. Like, this is a very old philosophical discussion. Like the reality of trees, you've never seen the reality of a tree. You just see like the tree itself, you know? Like you see the bark and the wood and the leaves. So that which the senses perceive is only the thing which has shape, not the shape. While the shape is an intelligible concept. Were the thing which has shape identical with the shape could not become manifest in a similarly shaped thing. So he's giving you like a logical argument. But it is obvious that the one thing possessing shape is not the same as the other. These are similitudes struck for the universal realities by which the real and the creature are qualified. In the case of the real, they are names, and in the case of the creature, they are engendered things. When Ibn al-Arabi discusses the supreme barzakh as universal reality or reality of realities, he also refers to it as the third thing, as shay al-thalith. So, Hannah, you would have read that word, the third thing, in the treatise you were just reading recently. What was it called? I forget. Um, he divides things into three kinds: that which exists in itself, i.e., the necessary being; that which exists through the other, i.e., everything other than God; and the third thing, which is the barzakh, which is neither existent nor non-existent. So now we come on to nature. Um, Definitely need a picture for sure. Is this last part of it? And hopefully it's not as dense as what we read. Okay, okay. So this probably isn't the last class then, in that case, depending on how much time we have left. Guys, let's take a breather. Any questions? Yeah, I forgot as well.
My brain has really gone completely blank. What was I reading? Astaghfirullah. Are you sure I was reading a treatise recently? Astaghfirullah.
But in that one, it will mention the third thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Okay. Um, does anyone want to take over for me in terms of reading, please? And let's see how far we can get. What's the word for cosmos in Arabic? Alam, alam, which can also just be a word. Al-alam. Although this might not be the modern word, I'd be interested if there's an actual modern word for cosmos. But what Ibn Arabi means by cosmos is al-alam. How could they differ? The dunya and alam, they don't differ because the cosmos is in the dunya and akhirah. They do not differ because dunya is just the cosmos experience in relation to time. That's all. A certain kind of time. Whereas the akhirah, you experience the cosmos transformed, but you're still in the cosmos, aren't you? Okay, then I'll carry on reading, inshallah. So, nature. Okay. So, Ibn al-Arabi calls the supreme barzakh by several other names, such as the reality of the perfect man and the Muhammadan reality. These and other names call to mind related concepts which would take us far from the concerns of the present work. However, it will be fitting to conclude the section with a brief analysis of one more synonym for the supreme barzakh, i.e., nature. This term is fundamental to all philosophical cosmology. By identifying the barzakh in nature, Ibn al-Arabi relates his cosmological teachings, which grow up from the various names, which can be applied to the barzakh, directly to the philosophical tradition. By discussing nature here, we open the door to cosmology as such, especially since Ibn al-Arabi gives the term two basic meanings. The second of which refers to reality, which is itself a barzakh between nature, as the supreme barzakh, and the things of the cosmos. But to develop the concept in any detail would take us in the direction of analyzing Ibn al-Arabi's visionary cosmos in detail. That's a task for another book. Um, where are we here? No, this is too much. I'm going to finish up the page, and then we'll call tonight. So then, like, I'll see you guys next week if you're available too, inshallah ta'ala. And that'll be the last session. So the root, for the summer, of course. So the root taba'a, from which the words tabi'a and taba'a are derived, means to provide with an imprint, to impress, to mark with a seal or a special characteristic. Hence, nature signifies the sum total of the peculiarities which are stamped into something. That is, the thing's characteristics, character, temperament, or constitution. The word tabi'a alludes to the feminine side of a male female active perceptive or yang yin relationship. To speak of tabi'a is to mention an impression, and at the same time to point to a reality which has made the impression. A fact which is brought home in the Quranic usage of the word taba, which refers to God sealing the hearts of the unbelievers. Hence, the word calls to mind receptivity toward an activity coming from above. In this respect, the sense of tabi'ah is not much different from sign to say that everything in existence displays the signs of God. Uh, to say that everything in existence displays the signs of God is to say that all nature is receptive toward God's creative command. Yeah. Okay. And let's just leave it there, inshallah ta'ala, and I'll stop recording.